Hey Drew,
Hey Chris,
how's it going?
good. How are you?
All right, okay.
You're recording this?
Yeah, I'm gonna record this. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a way that I'll have access to it by chance?
I'm gonna upload it to the Discord somehow, I think, if I'm allowed to do that.
Cool. That'll be great.
Other than that, I might have to make a Dropbox link. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we can use Google Drive. There's a lot of different ways, I'm sure. I just didn't know if I was wondering if I should take notes or record it myself or what. But
Feel free to record it yourself. Yeah.
cool.
And we'll just wait a couple more minutes before starting
Yeah,
to
no worries. I know I'm a bit early,
see if people.
and it's funny because my this ends at 4:40, and my family was like, okay, well we're going here this place at 4:45, and so I've got like a 5 minute window, but it works out.
I think it'll be all right. I think we'll get it figured out. Um, Yeah, I'm just going to be discussing some of these tools real brief if you're not familiar with them. Um, they're really handy for
Yeah,
sure.
I'd heard of some of them. The one that I had not heard of that I was most interested in was Proxy Man, I think it was.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's like a interceptor deluxe, kind of like I don't know if you ever used Charles proxy.
no, I remember you guys talking about it on the last call, but I have not used that either. I was kind of like Philip. I just use the basic things. So
Yeah, it should make things a lot easier. Um, both Postman and Proxyman together have helped me like really diagnose a lot of problems. There's really made me like totally give up.
yeah.
um
Um, how's the project going for you?
mm, Pretty good. I've got most of the UI done, the agenda screen done, database layer done. And but so I'm kind of like doing just a basic CRUD app, and then I'm gonna refactor it um to be using the offline stuff. But it's set
Gotcha.
up for all of it, but I haven't, I'm gonna do that part last. Where
Yeah, no, I think I'm kind of a little bit behind on it, unfortunately. The mentorship started up, it aligned with like as soon as the mentorship started, kind of aligned with when I had like a week or so to work on it, and then it aligned with when I was like moving. I've completely moved my residence in the middle of it, so like yeah, it's been a little hectic for me on my end, so I'm gonna have to buckle down after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I've been going at it pretty hard, but yeah, I don't have a job right now, so it's kind of like my job.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, here's people.
Okay. I'm gonna wait just about a couple more minutes to make sure people show up. Hopefully I can fit this in to 40 minutes. I should be able to fit it.
So
I can cheat a
boys,
little bit. Hey,
Adrian.
how's it going?
Hello, you guys. We got Robert.
hi.
Hi. Yeah, we're gonna wait. I'm gonna wait another 2 minutes to see if anybody else shows up before I get started. But yeah, just ask some questions with you guys and then just show off some of this stuff. These are just some useful tools I've found that if you're not familiar with them, will definitely speed up your workflow.
So you have more of a web development background?
Yeah, I got web and Android, and then before Android, I had my own software company and was doing stuff for 80s and 90s eras computers, early 2000s, and then I had a successful software company I ran for about 7 years, and then I sold that and took a bunch of time off. So after I came back from the time off, that's when I learned Android, and then I really wanted to fill my space fill my gaps of knowledge in with web. So yeah, so I've got much more web and web and Android. No iOS, like very minimal iOS.
Yeah, no, I'm the same.
And
Less on the website though. Before I used to do Android exclusively, and then I got into I was using Laravel. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a PHP framework. But that's kind of what I've been doing the past 5 years, and now I'm like, all right, I want to go back into mobile. So
Yeah, yeah.
is this your first Compose project or?
No, I've been doing some compose stuff professionally as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like compose a lot better.
I've peeked at your project a little bit, the one that you posted in GitHub for Tasky. So it's been I'm doing mine in XML, so they don't, they're completely different, a lot of parts, but there's a couple pieces that glancing at yours has been helpful for me. So
That's cool. Yeah, I don't say it's the best, but I struggle through it, try to figure it out for sure. All right, so I think this is about everyone that's going to be here. Hello, I'm Chris. You guys have met me before. Yeah, I'm going to be discussing some tools that I've been using for software development. The first one is Copy Clip. So I'm going to share my screen, and most of these are free, but some of them have like paid options. Like I think ScreenFlow is a paid thing, but totally for like $6, it was totally worth it for me at least. I don't know. Can you see my stuff?
yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I used to put a red ring around it, but now it doesn't do that anymore. So they changed the all times. Okay, so copy clip. So when you have a clipboard, you usually can only copy like one thing at a time, right? And if you like accidentally like select something and hit copy again instead of paste, you have to like go back and find it. It's really a pain in the neck. So I'm using this thing called Copy Clip, and it keeps all your locally. It keeps all your copied stuff locally, so you can go back to your previous copies and cuts and copies, and then just by selecting this, it puts it back on the clipboard, and then you can use it again. So this is super handy. I don't really care about missing a C or a V anymore. It doesn't drive me crazy. So that's the first one. Super handy for like just doing editing with multiple clipboards. If you're not using a clipboard manager, this one's really good. It's called Copy Clip. It's free. Okay, so the next one is ScreenFlow. Go ahead.
Is it also available for Windows?
Oh, I'm
Actually,
on Mac. Yeah, that's
yeah.
it.
The thing I was gonna comment about is, doesn't Mac already have like this function in the operating system?
No.
But not that you know about, because I mostly use also Mac for development, even though I'm not using it right now. And I know that Windows already has this feature integrated, Robert. If you are copying things and then press the Win and V key, as in pasting, you get the clipboard with the history of your copies in Windows.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's already integrated in Windows 10.
Good to know. Thank you.
It's so useful that it should be part of the these things should be part of the operating system, but they're not. So yeah, so if there's alternates for Windows, that's awesome. I haven't used Windows in a very long time. Okay, so the other one is the next one is called ScreenFloat. And it's a screenshot utility that lets you keep whatever you just screenshot on the screen at all times. So so instead of having to flip back and forth between things or trying to compare two items on the screen, you can just take a screenshot like this and then move it around. You can have multiple of these as well. So you can have like, instead of having multiple windows open, you have these like tiny little screenshots open everywhere. Another thing that's really useful about this is you can fade them. So if you're like trying to compare two layouts, like we do the layout inspector over here, where you've got two layouts happening at the time. You want to compare what your changes were. You can just take two screenshots and then overlay it. I'm not really sure why.
Does that gear icon with it? Does it let you save it and stuff, or what can you do there?
Yeah. You've got a whole browser that you can use to go back through your screenshots, delete them, save them, modify them, all that stuff. Now this one was like $6, but I use this thing all the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, because instead, like, other than that, you're writing this stuff down, which is like laborious. It changes a lot. Like I use it a lot for let me make sure I've got my debug mode here. I use it a lot inside my debugger for like looking at old values, like comparing 2 different values or 3 different values. And instead of trying to write these things down, I just put them on the screen. And it makes things just a lot easier. So we'll let that start compiling. I'm not sure why it's not running already. Let's see. Okay. All right, so I just want to like give you the other thing I use it for is to make it super obvious. If it's not obvious. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. All right. Turn off the breakpoints. Go so. This one should bring up there. Okay, there it is. So when I'm in here doing stuff with Compose, it's notoriously bad for like trying to figure out where things are at. Like these little boxes and stuff. It's just really hard to see where things are at. So I'll use the copy clip here, make a change, right? And then I'll overlay and see exactly what changed.
Oh, because you can fade it?
You can fade it, exactly.
Got it, okay.
That's, and I want to really go into that part because it's not super obvious why this fading thing is important.
How do you fade it like that?
You just use your two fingers and you scroll up and scroll down on it.
So it's like a mouse wheel thing, okay.
Yeah, it's like a mouse wheel thing, exactly. Scroll up and scroll down. Again, there may be something like this on Windows. I don't know. But this thing is super duper handy for all kinds of stuff where you just want to like, I don't want to take notes. I just want to have these 2 values side by side so I can compare them. Okay. Oh, that's Screen Float. That one's like $5 in the App Store. It's pretty good. There'll be every once in a while I'll have breaking changes with these things. I used to use a different app that they stopped making updates for the operating system changes. So it's kind of like a hurry up and wait kind of thing on that. Okay, so Postman. How many are you all are familiar with Postman?
Yeah, I've used it pretty extensively.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm sure there's way more
Yeah,
advanced
me
features
too.
though.
So I think that's nothing new.
So you guys you're familiar with the Postman. Okay. How about so I'll move on to Proxyman because
Well, can I ask real quick with Postman, was there like obviously I think we all know how to send GET and put and post requests and all that, but are there like specific features of Postman that maybe that aren't super obvious you were gonna interest?
yeah, so you can put the headers here as well. You know, you can put your key header and your authorization. So that's super important. You can also put the photos and images, so you can test. So I basically, well, the first thing I did is I went through it and did tests for all the different endpoints. So I did the register test, and then you can save. You know, you can save snapshots of what happened on the test. So this is the actual hitting the endpoint here. I can do live sending here, and these are the results. So this is another thing that's super useful. Instead of having to go and try and do these network requests, you can have like references of ones you've already done, like the register here. Here's a login. You can login success, login failure, what it looks like. So I don't know if you guys knew this. This is kind of a little bit more advanced feature of it. Some people don't know you can like save. So you can, so when you do a response, you can then it gives you an option. Like, let me see here.
Yeah, it's save it.
So right here, you can save the response as an example, and that's what these are.
Okay, I actually didn't know that. That's cool.
And yeah, so instead of having to go do the call every time and setting it all up, you can actually have ones you've already done. It's like, I just want to know what happens when this thing dies. Oh, it gives a message. Okay. Versus like log out, which, it gives nothing. It doesn't give doesn't give a message, just does it. And like, or delete, like sometimes it's, the success just gives a 200 here. It doesn't give any body here. Or does a 400 if it's a bad request. So that's that, and then you can also share these workspaces. But if you haven't used it before, I recommend just going through and struggling, trying to figure out how to make all this stuff, set all this stuff up, because this honestly saves so much time trying to build these queries on your own. And then after you've done the successful queries, you can actually go look them up in different on different platforms, like on Java, it's got OKTCP. So you can like do it. This isn't the really code you want to use directly. You could use it directly, but it gives you an idea of like what needs to be set up. Unfortunately, it doesn't have retrofit. It just has this OKTCP, which is like more just Java based. So it gives you an idea of what the code should look like, the add headers and the method and URL and all that stuff. So
I didn't know about that part either. How did you pull that menu up?
okay, so over here on the side, so you're on this event and you go over the code thing, and then you have these little different, you have you can do curls, so you can do right from the desktop, or you can
Cool.
there's a nice little sanity check.
Yeah, it points you in the right direction.
Yeah, kind of like it needs to have add this header, it needs to add this method. It'll actually correspond to all the values you've used over here. So that's super handy. Like when I was just having a heck of a time with this update event, and I didn't realize that this, how this was all formatted and what these values were, and that they were actually working. I could then go back to my stuff and go, oh, okay, I forgot to do set this key properly or whatever. And I'd have the update event here, so it tell me like, oh, okay, this is what a successful return looks like. And so that's super handy for that stuff. Okay, let me move on now to Proxyman. All right, so here's Proxyman. I don't know if it's made by the same people or not. Probably not. But it's the same idea. So, and the cool thing about Proxyman, they've made the setup really fast and really straightforward. So you have to set up a, so I'm running this on a hardware device I've got here right next to my computer, which is a Pixel 3. And you have to set up a proxy on it. So, but then it's always like with Charles Proxy, it's always like, how do you do this again? How do you set it up again? So it actually gives you step-by-step here. Install a certificate on Android physical devices. You just go to the help menu, because you only do this once, right? And then you forget how to do it. So this is like install this on the Android. So you go over here and it actually gives you a step-by-step guide on what you have to do on the device, like on the actual Pixel 3. You have to set up the Wi-Fi, configure the proxy to your computer. So that's basically all the traffic is coming off the device into your computer and then onto the internet. That's the idea here. And then you have to install the SSL, and it shows you how to do that. So everything's step by step here. Then you have to add these configurations to your this is like a resource you have to add to your project, and then you have to add this to your manifest, which refers to that network security config resource file. So, but if you go through these things step by step very carefully, it should be set up within a minute or two. But basically, yeah, you're setting up a proxy on your phone to go to your computer to then capture the traffic. So you can see here, I've got pinned the task EPL coding, and you can see I've done a bunch of different calls and stuff. And you can see like it'll tell you like what the call is on the sourcing side, what the mode is, the put, push, get, delete. And then like for this multi-part stuff, it's really handy to see like what the headers are, what the headers look like, what the body looks like, what the authentication looks like. It'll actually decode the JWTs for you right here. You don't have to go to a separate tool. It'll tell you right here what the user ID is and when it's expired at and things like that. And then it gives you the multi-part. You can then go back and download the data that you sent. So this is an update event here for updating one of the events. And it gives you the payload here, the ID, the title. It shows you exactly the shape of the payload. So then you can look at the responses that have come back. And then you can tell I was going through here trying to get this initial create event thing working properly. And I was having a heck of a time with photos. I was not able to upload the photos. I finally figured it out because I was calling it something wrong. So here's one right here where I did it properly. Where is it? Post. Yeah, so well, not that one. Let's see where I got it. Put. Oh, maybe not recently. Maybe I just fixed it. Okay. So
Can I ask a question about this?
sure.
So just as kind of a general workflow, like if you were, starting from scratch, like you would read the API documentation, you would give some rough passes in Postman, get it working, and then you would do your implementation in Android. And then this part right here is kind of a sanity check of, okay, I've done XYZ. Now what's the phone actually doing when I send these web requests? Does it match with what I kind of structured in Postman?
Correct. So yeah,
Okay.
you can send a request from Postman here, and then you can also, these are coming from my app here. My app, the phone is at 192.168.0175. This is actually the Pixel 3 that's sitting over here. And these are this is the actual data going across the wire. On this side is the request part, this is the response side. And you can see here.
Does it pull this in real time? If you were to log into the app, we'd see that populate in this menu.
Yeah, let me do that real
Okay.
quick. Let me go ahead and do that. You can see it in real time. So there's authenticate coming in here. And it's just a simple, the header is just basically, it's just basically a header. There's really not much in the body. Here's the authentication data. Here's the actual raw query. And then you can like do comments on it and does like some summary information for how big it is and things like that, which a lot of that information is duplicated here. And then like when I'll show you what happens when I do a create. So I'm creating an event over here on my phone, and we'll call this. I was going to develop okay, so here's that. So I did a post here. You can see the body was him creating an event, and here's the title and ID and everything like that, and then here's the response on this side. It just came back with the filled out, when it took this from an attendee ID, and it gave me back the full ID or full object, including the attendee ID. So you can see in real time like what the values of your field names are, what the values are coming across the wire, whether they're like quoted strings or some other type of number, to make sure all the data is correct. And then you can also confirm it with Postman. Like if you send the requests to via Postman, they're also being caught in this proxy. You can see what the inquiries look like. So if I went over here to Postman and did a an authenticate. Yeah, let's see if that authenticate works. It'll actually show up here as an authenticate. And this one is just sending the bearer tokens and stuff. So you can see how, if the data is correct coming across the wire for any traffic on the device, which is a lot more than this app inspection gives you. The app inspection, it doesn't give you the information that you really need to do the full debugging in my experience. So, all right, so that's Proxyman.
Just to maybe complete this part, is you have alternatives for the same thing that do the same functionality, which is Charles, which is mainly also used on macOS. At least for my experience, I used Charles on macOS, and on Windows I used a lot of Fiddler, because I used to do this a lot in a production app because of security issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's other tools I'm sure on Windows that let you do all
it's but the UI is basically the same of what you're looking at right now.
Yeah, you have the the individual request, the the request side of the data, and the response side of the data, and the response code and things like that. Charles Proxy used to be free, but they started charging for it. So now it's like $40, and you can only go for like 40 minutes. This is actually a free, and they don't limit you on time. They do limit on you on features and functionality, but I just keep it running and makes it convenient to see where the traffic is on and off the device all the time. without starting the inspector, without having to go and start the timeline and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
So
I guess
that, you
you
go
go
ahead.
ahead, bro. Oh, okay. So I'm guess I'm just used to Charles still, and I don't know if Proxyman also has those functionalities, or probably not on the free version, but you could like rewrite requests or responses or
Yeah.
map them to local data files, so you could mock the response, for example,
Yeah,
locally.
that does let you do that. I haven't done a lot of that. Mostly I was trying to like use it as
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it in this project either. Just to people be aware that it probably is possible.
yeah, and Postman lets you do all kinds of mocking stuff here. You know, that's where I would probably want to do it, is in a tool like Postman. They give you all kinds of tools for doing mocks, like setting up all kinds of mocking test servers. This is more like monitoring style, where you're just trying to see what's happening over the wire. It does have some of that mocking and saving stuff, but I wouldn't do it here. I'd do it in Postman because it's got
No,
more
neither.
like sharing data between teammates that I've explored. There's a lot more of that here in Postman than in Proxyman. But yeah, if you've never used a tool like this, it's super handy for diagnosing problems. I just find it to be very convenient way, and it's better than the built-in better than the built-in stuff, this built-in app inspector stuff, because it's always there and you don't have to turn it on or remember to turn it on or somehow get going before the application is running to capture the data. So
Yeah, this feels like a missing piece in my tool belt. So thanks for bringing it up. I was gonna ask the first part where you had like some steps to, like, you had to put something in your manifest in your resource file. Is that stuff that you would just delete before you went production ready, or what?
yeah, you could either delete it or do a separate build where it builds that stuff. The OKTHCP client builds that stuff in. But yeah, there's a way. So once it goes to like, I don't even know if that security config actually will become active unless you're in debug mode. So there's
Okay.
Yeah, it depends on the build folder it's inside. I used it a lot, also referring to the same experience I had before, because use that to define the certificates the app will use. You can use it to define an SSL pinning, which is another technique for connecting only to a specific server and so on. And you can you can have a network security config for the debug builds and another one for release builds and so on. So you would have two different security config files.
Right. And yeah, so they've got a lot of things that this only works in debug mode. So they've got lots of things around that you can look into just by looking at the help. They're really great help. Honestly, this is one of the reasons that sold me more on Charles Proxy, because Charles Proxy, it does everything, but you really gotta know what you're doing. This makes it just a lot easier, very simple, straightforward. Okay. I guess before I do the last one, which is GitHub, I want to do this source graph. I don't know if you've ever used source graph. It allows you to search text or search for code inside of GitHub. Now, GitHub just released their own version of this, but I haven't used it very much. I have used this quite a bit for looking up like all kinds of code, and so here, let me just look at assisted inject. Where is it? Assisted inject. It lets you do very complex queries, but then it'll look up stuff, code for you inside of GitHub, which has always been like, why don't you let us look code in GitHub? It's always like searching the readmes or something like that. It's like, this is not useful. But this is pretty useful, because then I can go into these individual projects and then just click here to view it on GitHub, which then brings me to the project that has that feature, or the file that has that feature that I'm looking for. So unless you guys have known a different tool, like this is the first one I found that actually does the code search inside the projects as opposed to about the projects. And then, you know, it gives lots of different repositories that have like the hits on how these things are all set up. So it's really awesome.
Is this just a website or was this an extension or what was this?
Website, sourcegraph.com. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the website.
This is
Uh,
cool. I didn't knew about this. It's gonna be
yeah.
pretty helpful.
Yeah, so if you're looking for code snippets and code comparisons, like this is just the way for like more esoteric stuff.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's super handy. So I think GitHub is trying to integrate this in, but I don't know. This has been working for me and it's free. And so I'm like, okay, and it lets you do all kinds of different like regular expression searches and structural searches. So you have a lot of functionality here that's hidden behind. So I'll let you guys explore that. But this has been lifesaver, honestly, for me. Okay, and the last one is GitHub Copilot. I'm sure everyone's heard about GitHub Copilot, but I'm not sure if everyone knows what it's capable of on Android. So like writing these, for example, writing tests and writing these like type converters, it's pretty amazing. Like, for example, for this one right here, to write this type converter, all I have to do is do something like this: object, local, date. Oh, this is a type. This is a serializer. There it is. Local date time serializer. Do you see how it's put it in blue for me here? So instead of having to go through and write all this stuff out, all this boilerplate stuff, it actually kind of knows what you're doing already, and will write it out for you, which is pretty awesome. And not only that, is after it writes it out for you, if you want to do a test, like a local function main test, I don't know if people know that you can like write a function main test. You can just drop a main anywhere. A lot of people didn't know this.
Whoa, no, not really. That's mind fuck right now.
Yeah, so
What the heck? You can just write a fun main function anywhere and it works.
and then run it or debug it on the
God
spot.
damn it.
So if I want to,
This could have been so useful so many times.
yeah. So you can say like val, zone, time, yeah. So zone, date, time, converter equals zone, date, time. Okay, this is the serializer. Okay, so I'm instantiating one of these. Okay, one of these things. No, I don't actually instantiate because it's already an object. So I got that there, and then I can say zone tape now, and then encode it. Well, the demo's not going as well as I would want. Okay, so you can say encoded equals that, and this is the encoder here is zone. Well, let me try a different version here. Just a second. And sorry, I'm like doing this on the fly. I should have practiced this. Okay, there it is. There, so it create a little test for you where it serializes it, then deserializes it, and then it prints them out, and then you can just go and run it here. So it'll write a lot of these like simple test things for you. It kind of like understands what you're doing. And then you can run it with these dropped-in mains. So instead of going and building a whole test harness out, you can actually just, you know, check out your little pieces of snippets of unit code test right here, like that. And it's integrated the rest of your application, so you can call other stuff inside here. But I've used this quite a bit for building out like these tests. Like once I got one of these tests going, it was really easy to build other tests. Let me show you my test here. Hold on one second. So like, let's see here. So like this acronym test, I wrote this one and it gave me all of these. So like I could do another one here if I wanted to. Test. Boom. So it wrote that test for me based on the previous stuff I'd already done. and it can get really complicated. Like, it can get very, very sophisticated. Like with this here, I did a test for my logins, and then it actually wrote this one, and then wrote this one as well. And then I would write one of these. Like I think I may have wrote this one, and then it wrote these for me.
Hmm.
Like I could do another
That's
one.
very cool.
Yeah, so like this repetitive stuff, once you write one, it kind of like, so it's suggesting log out is successful for a logged in user. So for some reason it doesn't want you to write email addresses, but it'll write the rest of the test.
So I've heard of it, but I've not used it. And just a heads up, we've got 4 minutes left. But I wanted to ask how do you get GitHub Copilot, and how did you then activate it in Android Studio, or does it just automatically on all the time?
Yeah, so there's a plugin called GitHub. So there's a plugin here that I've installed called GitHub Copilot. It comes from the IntelliJ store, right? And then you turn it on. You have to so that's my GitHub account. And then GitHub Copilot, you actually have to go turn it on, and then you get to say which languages are disabled, which one you want to use it with, and then it'll just start showing up in your editor.
So it's just active most of the time whenever you're typing in a file.
Yeah, it's just active, and then you can like disable them. You can disable completions for GitHub, or you could log out from GitHub. And then you use this thing to log in. There's an onboarding process, and every once in a while it logs you out, but just hit the button and logs you in again. So it's like,
Isn't this a paid feature? I thought GitHub Copilot was paid.
$10 a month, totally worth it.
Okay, but
For
still,
I'll try it. Yeah.
Yeah, for like
I think you have a free trial. I've never tried it.
Yeah, like 30 or 60 days free trial.
I'm currently not really interested, because I don't know. I think I'm more here about I totally get it, but I think I'm more here about the full learning process. So I really want to do everything by hand.
That's the thing about it as well, is it helps you learn, because
Yeah.
I think so.
It'll give you actually suggestions about what should be done, and it's like a Copilot, right? It's still, you have to decide whether it's the right thing to do. It's not going to write the code for you. In fact, a lot of times it's wrong or has to be modified in such a way, but it gives you a suggestion, and you can like go through a series of suggestions. It'll like give you, so it's like instead of doing the Stack Overflow searches or the documentation searches, it does it in context for you. It doesn't really write it for you. You really have to still know exactly what's going on, but it gives you suggestions. And I tell you, I've learned such a tremendous amount from it, actually. As a learning tool, it's perfect. It's like really amazing. Not perfect, but it's pretty darn close to having somebody sitting next to you going, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And like better than the IntelliSense. I mean, it's given me all kinds of things I just would never have thought about doing, that has really like sped up my code and sped up my understanding as well. And made it so you're more in flow with when you're coding, so you don't have to go back and forth to the documentation as much. Man, I wish I prepared a better demo. If the guys want me to do a better demo of the GitHub Copilot, I could do it, but all I would suggest is give it a try, be open-minded. I know it's scary because it's like, seems like someone's doing our work for us, but it's a lot of the stuff is like the memorization part of things, which I don't really like that part of it, is what it takes away from you. So you don't have to memorize so much stuff. It'll actually give you a lot of things, but you have to know what these things are and what they do and how they work. And so it's not like you're not a cheat. I don't believe it's a cheat code. I see a lot of developers getting very upset about it for some reason, but this is just a technological evolution. It's a tool to help. You still have to like read its code and understand what it's doing. You don't get away for free on that. But writing this repetitive testing code, oh man, it's so awesome. Like I wrote this one with its help, and then it wrote these for me. And once it kind of knows what you're doing when you're in the flow of things, it seems to understand like, oh, you're gonna try to do one of these next, and you're gonna try one of these next. And then sometimes it'll do something